Good afternoon, everybody. Namaskar. Namaskar. Okay. So today you will hear from Dr. AMRIT KUMAR MISHRA, who is a great scientist. He is working on, you see, marine ecology, and he has done his PhD in foreign countries. He has worked in many projects. He will share his very research-based presentation with you today. Okay, we will welcome him. I want that all teachers all do, because you see, you have a very big team. So you can call for next Saturday, another great speaker is coming. He is Dr. Sagar Pradhan, who has been awarded as, you see, a climate hero by United Nations. Next Saturday he will speak. I think please arrange more participant to interact. Okay.
We have invited our own children. Dr. Patti, we invited our own children. They're coming in another 2 minutes. They're on their way. As students of our school. You will have the hall full.
Okay, that will be very fine. That will be very fine. So, we're missing Punasis Babu. He is in Delhi now, no?
Sir?
Punasis Rath, we are missing him.
Yeah, Mr. Punasis is traveling out of Bhubaneswar. He is going to Delhi.
So now I expect Dr. Mishra to join soon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Patti. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. You are most welcome, Dr. Mishra. We welcome you. We are very happy that you joined our platform, and our teachers and students, they are very much interested to listen from you. Okay.
Yeah.
Before I introduce you, I must introduce my team.
Sure.
KT Global School is a residential school. It is #1 school of India. And we have invited many celebrities like Azharuddin, who is teaching our sports to the students. Okay. Many foreigners, foreign volunteers are coming. They are working with us. They are teaching them French, German language. School is led by Dr. Deep Khere, who has vast knowledge, who has taught in very big schools of India. He is heading the school. Under his administration, the school has been streamlined in brightest direction. And our teachers are all IITians, educated teachers. They are great scholars, and they have contributed a lot for the academic betterment of the students and schools. So, on behalf of our school, I extend you hearty welcome, Dr. Mishra. So, I want to say a few lines about you, because your CV is very vast. So within short period, sorry. So I am introducing Dr. AMRIT KUMAR MISHRA, who is a scientist in Bombay Natural History Society. He has been awarded PhD in marine ecology from University of Plymouth, UK, and University of Algarve, Portugal. He has completed MSc in marine biology from Pondicherry Central University. He did his postdoctoral research at Swell Institute of Marine Science, Hong Kong University. He also worked as National Postdoctoral Fellow at School of Earth, Ocean and Climate Science, IIT Bhubaneswar. He is an international scientist of marine conservation and island ecosystem. His professional experience is vast and wide. At the beginning of his career, he worked as a research assistant in an Institute of Science, Fishery Development Officer, Integrated Coastal Zone Management. He has authored numerous research articles on seagrass ecosystem, published in international journals of repute. He has also directed a good number of research projects funded by Hong Kong Exchange Foundation, Raf Ali Grant, and other agencies. He is an expert in providing scientific support for wetland restoration project in India and Hong Kong. His expertise on investigating wetland restoration, pollution monitoring, ecosystem service, low carbon sequestration, ocean acidification, impact and management has been internationally recognized. Today, he will deliver his research-based lecture on marine forest as a nature-based solution in climate change mitigation. We welcome Dr. Mishra to share his scientific and research-based lecture on marine ecology. But his biodata is very vast. I have shared some profiles of his biodata. So you are welcome, Dr. Mishra.
Thank you, Dr. Pati, for all this introduction. And hi, students. Like I can see all of you, you are very small, and I don't know, like I have mostly, like the slides are mostly pictures. So hopefully you will understand what I am going to say. I will try to explain it in very simple manner, so you should be able to understand. And because you are the next generation of researchers, scientists, or youth influencers who would work on climate change. So let's think of this, my presentation, as a general introduction for you to understand what are marine forests and how they help in climate change mitigation and adaptation. Yeah, like how they will help us, like to fight with climate change. Yeah, let me share my screen so you guys can see everything. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, we'll see now.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's, like Dr. Pati said, my name is Amrit, and you can call me Amrit. And I will try to explain you what are marine forests and why they are important climate change, why they are important in climate change mitigation part of India, and what we know about them, or where they are present and when you can see them, so all these things. So in this picture, if you see from the left, these are seagrass. So it means they are grass which are adapted to stay in the sea, and they are underwater. So when you go to the coast, you cannot see them. So the next are salt marsh. These are all plants, you can see them. These ones you can see when you go to the coast, and the big ones are mangroves, which kind of everyone knows. Hontalo bono, we call them in Odia. So yeah, these are mangrove forests. Yeah. So let's first understand like a little bit what is climate change and how we as humans are causing it or not. So climate change, climate, like as you feel, is kind of the weather which we experience throughout the year, because we have, like now it's rainy season, then it will be winter, then it will be summer. So all these three to put together is kind of a climate, and that is happening for Earth for a long period of time. Yeah. So when we say climate change, and we are disrupting the flow of the weather, because now you can feel 10 years back, the temperature was 30 degrees or 35. Now it's 40 degrees in summer and it's very hot. So how are we causing this change? As humans, we are, on one side, we are putting more fossil fuel based emissions into the atmosphere, more carbon dioxide, let's say, and our population is increasing. So we are cutting the forest, like on the land, and also destroying the forest in the ocean, which can absorb that carbon dioxide and probably provide a balance. But we are disrupting that balance by having more and more industries, more and more cars, more and more fossil fuel burning. Fossil fuel is kind of the petrol and diesel that we put in our cars and bus and everything. Yeah, so that is fossil fuel. So when we put this much amount of fossil fuels into the atmosphere, does it stay there? No, it doesn't stay there. out of all the fossil fuels or the emissions, like we put around 37.12 billion metric tons. So I don't know, like 1 billion is 1 million is 10 lakhs. So 1 billion is 10 crores. So if you understand lakhs and rupees and crores, so it's like a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And out of that, 29% goes to the land forest. But we are decreasing the amount of land forest by cutting it all the time for our agriculture, for our houses, for our furniture and everything. So we are, in one side, we're putting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. On the other side, we're reducing the forest that can help in absorbing this carbon dioxide. Like all the students must generally know, like through photosynthesis, plants absorb the carbon dioxide and make their leaves, their roots, their trees and biomass, and that helps in storing of that. However, 30% of this 37.12 billion metric tons goes into the ocean. Everyone knows Earth is an ocean planet. We have 70% of our area as oceans and only 29% as forests, let's say. So 30% of all these emissions goes into the oceans. What happens there? So when it goes into the oceans, carbon dioxide, when it enters the oceans, becomes a carbonic acid. Like for you to understand, when you drink a thumbs up or a Coca-Cola or something that has water mixed with carbon dioxide. So you feel the difference between normal water and when carbon dioxide is there and how it tastes different. So same thing is happening to the oceans and is changing the chemical nature of the ocean. I will not go into the details, what is ocean acidity and stuff, but it is changing the chemistry of the water, of the seawater. So as it changes, there are three factors to climate change. One is ocean acidification, because the seawater chemistry will change. Second is ocean warming, because once we put more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, like I showed you in here, so the atmosphere keeps getting warmed because the sunlight that comes in goes away, and carbon dioxide helps in, I will not go into that part. So that leads to warming. Yeah. And the third would be, because of this warming, all the ice that is stored in the polar regions of Earth, like the Arctic or Antarctic, is starting to melt, and it will lead to sea level rise. End of this century, we will get a 18-centimeter rise in the sea level. That doesn't seem so much, but a lot for so many countries, and seawater intrusion into our coastal areas where we have agriculture and so many things, and disrupting the human life system as we know. So here again, I want to tell you all the students that when seawater chemistry changes, it impacts from very simple living organisms to the biggest one. So once we have disruption because of climate change, once this pH changes, once this pH changes, very small level organisms like phytoplanktons will die, and the fish that eats that phytoplankton, it will have a knock-on effect. So it's like if you break one step of a ladder, you cannot reach the top. So it's kind of that. So if one organism dies, the fish that depends on that dies, and it keeps going on. And it will alternatively, it will come to, at the end, it will come to all humans that live on the coastal communities. So if you know, the Earth has around, we have 7.5 billion people, and at least 2 billion people will get affected by this just see ocean acidification. There is warming and sea level rise and everything, but ocean acidification impacts the fish, the fish and its foods and the food it eats. So it directly impacts our food security, what we are going to catch from the ocean, all the fishermen that, catches this fish and how they process that fish, how they sell, all those people who eat fish will kind of get affected. So the other problem here with climate change is we are also polluting the ocean. So it's not just one factor, just climate change happening in the ocean. In the ocean, we have climate change, and then we have pollution from our industries. So that creates like multiple pressures. Like at one point of time, the fish is stressed from the change in seawater carbonate chemistry. and also from the pollution. So, and all these changes happening in a very short period of time, like because of our activities, human activities, this doesn't allow the fish or the animals or the ecosystem to have adapt. You know, like when you feel hot, you can turn on the AC. In the ocean, they don't have the AC. So air conditioning, you know, so the fish that stays in the surface cannot go to 2 kilometers at the bottom of the ocean to feel cold, you know, so they can't do that. So either they adapt to these changes or they die. So they have only two options. They have to adapt or they have to die. So once, if they adapt, that's fine. It's good for us. But if they die, then it's a lot of problems from us. So along with pH, we have temperature too, you know, so temperature increase, like for example, I don't know if you students know that. So when we have nuclear reactors in India, so they use seawater to cool their system. But when they release that water, it's very hot. So there are fish, there are scientific studies, we say there are fish which will give eggs earlier before the summer arises, because they think now it's summer because the water temperature is very high and they don't have the female fish to, you know, fertilize the eggs or something, and the species collapses. So this is just an example of temperature. It will affect very drastically. Temperature changes combined with pH changes will affect more drastically to all the marine ecosystems or the marine foundation systems than sea level rise. Yeah. So what are the marine forests that can happen? Everybody knows about the land forest. So again, so let's see what are the marine forests we have. We have grass, it's called seagrass. So it stays from intertidal from the coast to 150 meters. Depends on light and local conditions. For example, if you have been to Andaman Nicobar Islands or Lakshadweep, there we have seagrass at 50-meter depth, but around the mainland coast, we have up to 20 meters depth because we have a lot of rivers. They bring a lot of water into this ocean ecosystem, and the water gets turbid because of monsoon and other things, and they don't grow very well. So then this is salt marsh, salt marsh are again grass ecosystems, but they are able to tolerate salt. If the salt marsh goes underwater, they will die. What they can tolerate is like the tide bringing in some salt water and then taking it away. So they can tolerate that. And they are generally found next to mangrove ecosystems, which are very big trees, and they are never submerged. So these are three kinds of marine plants. And then we have macroalgae that grows very big, but they are not plants. You know, they don't have a root system, so we don't call them plants, but they are photosynthetic organisms. Yeah. So these are the four types of marine forests we see in the ocean. And I think as kids, you must have seen the mangroves, but to look at the seagrass and macroalgae, probably you have to dive, or you can find them, they're, broken leaves or something on the beach. And when you go to see mangroves on the Odisha coast, like the Vitarkanika National Park or Ostaranga or Devi River mouth, you can see the salt marsh there, which will be very small grass-like plants. Yeah. So these are the four marine forests. If anybody asks you what are the marine forests, you can say these are the four ones. Why we call them forests? Because they are photosynthetic organisms that can capture the. So I wanted to talk about the mitigation part and also the adaptation. The adaptation will only happen when we conserve or manage this marine forest. The mitigation part is the one where we look into how these ecosystems capture the carbon dioxide that we are releasing, do photosynthesis, and then store them in their soil. So a basic difference between land forests and marine forest is that in the marine forest, like from the salt marsh, seagrass, and macroalgae below, what happens is there is always sediment accretion. We call that sediment accretion. That sediment keeps piling up and the plants grow up. So whatever carbon is stored here remains there. But this sediment accretion doesn't happen in land forest. It's very less, doesn't happen in land forest. So once you cut the land forest or you destroy the land forest, all the carbon that's stored there goes away. But that happens in marine forest, but here the carbon is being stored for millenniums. Like in Mediterranean Sea, if you take a core of 1 meter, you can find seagrass ecosystems and their organic matter maybe for the last 80 or 90 years or even more. So that's how marine forests are different, and marine forests also store around 30 to 35 times more carbon than land forest. Yeah. So in the second picture, if you see mangroves, geographically, their area is 150,000 square kilometers, but seagrass has much more. But in terms of carbon storage, seagrass are less compared to mangroves, because mangroves are the first, salt marsh second, seagrass third. Why is this? Because in seagrass ecosystems, it is very difficult to go below 20 meters. 20 meters is 60 foot. So it's around 5-storied building, if you can, 5-storied building, yeah. So if you going below 20 meters, collecting samples, bringing them back into the lab, it's much difficult. That's why the number of studies that measured seagrass carbon sequestration rates is very less. So as a result, we have very low. So once we do more sampling, more research and understand this, so the mangroves are the most easiest one to do sampling. You can just go and along the coast and get these things, and the seagrass are the most difficult ones. Yeah. And here also you can see like the seaweeds or the macroalgae, which I talked about, has also like a range of carbon stored in them somewhere between like the seagrass and salt marsh in that region. So they are good in terms of carbon storing, but we need more research to see where is this carbon stored. Is it stored where they are cultured, or it goes away into the open ocean and stuff? And yeah, there is still, it's in the like what we say preliminary stage of understanding this. Yeah. And when you look at the adaptation part of this marine forest, they help in so many ways, like from biodiversity to reproduction to conditions to connectivity. And all these ecological adaptation of this marine forest helps social adaptations, like from food security, from reducing hunger to everything. I will come in a different slide where I can show you out of the 17 sustainable development goals we have, this marine forest helps in achieving at least 10 or 12 of them. I will not go into details, but I will just give few examples. So let's see, in India, where we have all these marine forests. So if you look at this one for mangroves, you can see we have mangroves all along the coast. Like in south of India, we have a bit more than here in West Bengal or Sundarbans, we have more. This is Odisha, Bhitarkanika National Park. We have more, and this is a study we have done with all Southeast Asian countries, 13 of them, in which kind of mangroves, like is it, which kind of mangroves, or where we have the capacity to include them into where the mangroves are storing more carbon, and which areas should be considered as a national park or others to protect and conserve them and use these ecosystem services. So, and on this side, you can see all the coastal states, like from Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, all coastal states have seagrass and salt marsh, except West Bengal, which have only salt marsh and doesn't have any seagrass ecosystems, probably because of the Ganges River, which brings a lot of sediment input into the system. We also have this seagrass and salt marsh ecosystem in our islands ecosystem, in Lakshadweep, in Andaman Nicobars, then in Daman Diu and other places too, in Goa too. So if you look, we have all this marine forest in India, like globally. But the problem in India is we don't have enough studies to include this in our national policies and frameworks. Mangroves are the most studied in India, whereas seagrass and salt marsh are least studied. Look at, in this picture, if you look at mangroves, from birds to mammals to fish, mangroves gives us a lot of ecosystem services, like that for biodiversity, for coastal protection. Everyone remembers the 1999 super how mangroves of bitter a lot of storm surges and erosions and everything. And in mangroves, there is a lot of fish, and people have economic benefits, not only through catching fish, they also collect honey. They also go for hunting of these animals. So, and it regulates the climate. Yeah. So for kids and children, if you can see all these animals and plants that are on the mangroves, they help them, like the land forest, they help them, they give them their food, their shelter and everything. And they also have a lot of fish, which you generally don't see because fish is underwater. So when you go to a mangrove ecosystem, maybe you can see these crabs, this small fish. You can see those crabs, but there are a lot of them when the water comes in, and they help the coastal communities in providing food and security and so many things. That's why, like, the Odisha government through AMRIT project, which is like enhancing coastal resilience, is trying to have planting more mangrove ecosystems around the coast to protect, because Odisha gets lots of cyclones, so, and prevent coastal erosion and everything. Yeah. This is salt marsh. This is from Rusikulya river mouth. You can see the birds. These are the pictures I have taken. So I don't have the pictures for all the fish and everything, but these are salt marsh plants. You can see fishing here. There are crabs. And this plant is called Salicornium brachiata. It's a salt marsh plant, and the CSIR have a patent where they produce low sodium salts for diabetic people. So people in Ostaranga area, Devi River mouth area, culture this plant and they use it. They supply it to industries for, producing this low sodium salt for diabetic people. Yeah? So these are the few ecosystem services or the climate adaptation part and mitigation part this ecosystem provide. But in Odisha, we don't have any research on the salt marsh ecosystems and how much carbon is stored in them. So as Dr. Pati said, I was involved at IIT Bhubaneswar, and through that, we are trying to quantify how much carbon is stored in the salt marsh ecosystems that can help in the mitigation part, provide a policy framework for the Odisha government to include these into their national determined contributions for Odisha, and also work towards conservation and management. Because in Odisha, mostly all the salt marshes are destroyed for plantation of mangroves because they think these are mangrove associated plants, and and with mangroves they will come back. But I can show you pictures. Even in this picture, you don't see any mangroves here. So they are individual plants, but they're able to survive next to mangroves. So that's a whole different presentation and topic. So, but most important is to remember this salt marsh supports, like mangroves, they support a lot of fish and biodiversity. And we need all this fish and biodiversity for all the coastal fishermen or coastal communities to have their food security. Yeah. And also salt marsh helps in prevents coastal erosion, same like mangroves. So we come to seagrass, just look at this number, 20%, So 20% of globally important commercial fishes. India has 1778, around 1700 commercial fish, which is both finfish and shellfish. These are shellfish, like the shells you use in your homes. So 20% of that is around, 340 fishes or something that are commercially important, and they spend some part of their life in this underwater seagrass ecosystems. But we don't have any data on, like which species are present in seagrasses. The research has not been done properly. We don't have the data on the climate change mitigation part, including the carbon sequestration. If you look at that, there are only 6 papers in India which talks about the carbon sequestration, including 2 of mine. So we are in very early stages for seagrass and salt marsh, but for mangroves, we have very good data, that's why probably they are included in the blue economy of India, Blue Economy Framework of India, which was released last year. Yeah. So other than those 3, I told you about macroalgae, and you can see in this map, macroalgae or the seaweed is also all the states of India coastal. But in each of except for Tamil Nadu or a few places in Lakshadweep, it's not cultivated anywhere. We have it in our Chilika Lagoon, but people don't use seaweed aquaculture for anything. They are just there. But seaweed aquaculture, you can see they can provide a lot of ecosystem benefits from fish grazing to coral reefs to other fish and invertebrates that spend a lot of time there, and they can play an active role in climate change mitigation and adaptation. And this is a recent paper from Macready et al., a famous scientist in Australia working on this. But all these 1 to 8 are knowledge gaps. We don't have understanding on all of these knowledge gaps, which we need to address before we can actively say, yeah, these are at the same level like seagrass, salt marsh, or mangroves, and we can include them into our climate change plans, like the mitigation and adaptation plans. It still needs few more research, a few more years of research before we can include them in our climate. Like I said before, so when we look at the 17 sustainable development goals, just for example, seaweeds can contribute, when people do seaweed aquaculture, it could contribute to no poverty. If people are eating them like they eat in South Korea, Japan, and China, that will contribute to zero hunger. It will contribute to clean water and sanitation because naturally it will take out all the nutrients from the seawater. Yeah. So the salt marsh similarly supports lots of biodiversity, so it will contribute to life below water and clean water and sanitation, because in Tamil Nadu, all the salt marsh ecosystems are generally used for the leather industry to, like the leather industry put the polluted waters into these ecosystems and they filter it. Yeah. So that's a natural ecosystem service of the salt marsh ecosystems there. But more studies on their ecosystem services like food and the biodiversity is needed to properly include them into the Sustainable Development Goals of India. And I know like Odisha has been doing very good in life below water, but we don't have any research articles that supports that. We are diving in Chilika or in the Bay of Bengal area to see what's below. We just catch the fish, and because fish is considered life below water, so we are saying, yeah, we are doing very good. So this is a mangrove area that has been planted by destroying the salt marsh. Like I said before, these are all salt marsh plants. This is planted in Dhamra. You can see they have destroyed the entire salt marsh and just planted mangroves. But this salt marsh doesn't grow well with mangroves, so it's outside of that boundary. But anyway, these mangrove plants also contribute to various, from life below water to poverty to zero hunger, so many other sustainability and so many other sustainable development goals, which needs more research and more understanding, in terms of incorporating them into our policy framework, like our blue economy and SDGs. Yeah. So when we talk about way forward, like what we should do, because we are just here, we have another 2 ecosystems or 3 ecosystems where we need more studies, more integration, more research, more funding and everything. Like we are way back what every other developed countries or, America or Australia are. We are way back in terms of understanding. Very good in understanding the land forest, but we are very bad in understanding the marine forest. So this is an example where you have mangroves and salt marshes here. Yeah, but mangroves are more studied, but not the salt marsh. And this is one of the reasons they are called mangrove associates, because they are just next to mangroves. Because this is the condition which is very good for them, where water comes in and then goes away every time. So it's easier for them not to get submerged and stay underwater. So they like their life being exposed. Yeah. So mangroves here are more studies because they're big trees and easy to sample. Salt marsh, least studied in India, present to mangroves, but generally overlooked. And seagrass, you can see this is a recent picture from Andaman Nicobar Islands, where I saw because of anthropogenic pollution, because of tourism, they release untreated sewage to seagrass ecosystems. This is what happens to them. They get decimated and die off. But this is intertidal, and we have more seagrass below 5 meter, 10 meter, 20 meter, 40 meters, and we don't have any idea about them. Yeah. So this is for way forward. We have to understand more about these ecosystems, how they behave, what's their current status, what are their biodiversity associated with them, what are the commercial important fishes associated with this species. And all of this put together will provide us an idea, yeah, these ecosystems are similarly important with mangroves and we should conserve them, manage them. So we have a chance to, mitigate this climate change that's happening in our lifeline, let's say next 50 years or something. If we don't manage to absorb this carbon dioxide that's present in the atmosphere, we'll have a lot of problems. Sea level rise will come by the end of this century. Before that, we'll have so many other problems. Thank you. And if you have any questions, and all these people or the organizations have helped me in doing my research and what I tell you, taking these pictures and everything, they have helped me in the last 7 years in collecting all the data.
Thank you, Dr. AMRIT Kumar Mishra. It was wonderful listening to you. I think very many things most of us are not aware, and being a very unique topic, I think it was very enlightening to all of us. With your starting background, I think now we'll be thinking about it and trying to gather more information and try to contribute in any possible way we can do. But it's a very simple message that the main forests are being cut. If we at least save this side, the impact, we will try to balance it out. So we have very young children. If you want to give any message to them, I think they will be very keen to know. Please.
Yeah, for all those young people, whenever you go to the coast, try to identify or try to find a crab, find a grass, and try to know what are that. Like if you go to these, I don't know, coastal areas, try to find out all those animals you find. Maybe they will go extinct in next 50 years or 100 years. So try to bring them to the lab and ask your teachers, what are these animals? Are they from the ocean or they are from the land? And because we need to protect our ocean, I would not just say just the marine forest. If we protect our ocean, everything else would be kind of get protected within that. So as young people, young students, try to work towards protecting our ocean, because our planet is blue planet. So it's because of the ocean, not because of the land. Yeah. So go to the oceans, go to the beach, go to Puri or wherever your school takes you, go there, watch the waves, be happy, and like try to protect it. When you go to the ocean, you normally don't see anything, but when you dive, if any of you become a marine researcher or marine biologist in your career, you would be happy to see so many wonderful things underwater. And learn swimming, because you are in a global school. So learn how to swim so that you can explore the ocean. Without swimming, exploring the ocean is very difficult. Yeah, that's the message. Learn swimming, protect our oceans. Yeah.
Samrit, they are very keen to go to water, and I have seen them early morning. They try to reach to the pool and they're enjoying. I do not know how many have they learned swimming. I think within a month or so, we'll check their ability to swim, at least cross the width, if not the length. So thank you very much for bringing such a beautiful way to contribute. At times when we listen your some talks like your type, people ask very, very big promises, but you gave a very beautiful and simple remedy or tries for children that they can go to the sea and see what is around, because it's going to be extinct sometimes later. And learning swimming is, I think, a message which all we are giving, and you are also party to it. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to listen to you, and we look forward to your visit during our international conference. And if life permits, kindly visit our school and spend some time with children physically. Thank you very much, Mr. Amrit. It was wonderful listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gopi. Thanks. I would try to come and visit to a school. Yeah, sure. No problem.
So,
Please welcome.
thank you very much, Dr. Mishra. There is a standing invitation for you to visit our, we invite you for our global summit. You will be the keynote speaker. But I have some small questions for you. You see, most of the environmental activists here, they focus on growing mangroves in Chilika Lake and coastal area of Paradip, near the bank of definitely. But you have highlighted, you say, about the salt marsh forest, seagrass, okay, then
Yeah.
seaweed. These are very interesting. How these activities, they don't know about this. Okay, you have classified the marine forest. These areas are neglected. And secondly, in Sundarban, they grow different species of mangroves. In Chilika, the species are different.
Yeah.
The economic benefits and medicinal benefits of these species also need to be assessed by
Yeah.
researchers like you.
Sure. So answering your first question, I am like trying to sensitize the coastal community, not the communities, but the coastal NGO of government of Odisha. I have a training for them next week on salt marsh and seagrasses. So I would go there and tell them about like what I told you here, like salt marsh are different from mangroves, and we need to have a different plan or approach for their conservation management and more research towards understanding their ecosystem services. And when compared for restoration, I know like lots of people doing mangrove restoration by just planting, but that doesn't work because in Australia, 10,000 hectares of mangrove just died because they stopped the freshwater inflow. Like mangroves need like daily or weekly freshwater spikes so they can manage their salinity. So what I am telling or trying to tell these youth who are just planting mangroves that we need to have a scientific and a traditional approach. Traditionally, you can plant the mangroves that's native to that area, and we need a scientific approach in monitoring the salinity, the pH, the simple ones, which should not be super costly. And you should be able to do it within 20 or 30,000 rupees just to have a temperature thermometer, a salinometer, and a pH meter, and you measure those three parameters throughout the year or whenever you are planting. And that in long term, in 10 years, you could have the data, or in 5 years, you could have the data to see how much salinity have changed or how much temperature have changed in those areas they are planting or the local region. And that would help us to understand, rather to plant just a single species, we should go with multiple species. So if one species is not able to tolerate the changes in salinity or temperature that's going to happen 10 years down the lane, the other species would. So what's happening now is just a monospecific plantation. I hope it works, but it will not work in the long run for sure. So we need more research, and taking out salt marsh is one of the important factors which shouldn't they do. Like salt marsh, because salt marsh helps in sediment accretion, it helps the mangroves to come back. But if you take that out, you are changing, I'll not go into details, but you are changing the biogeochemistry of the sediment. If you change that, that's very difficult for the mangroves to, because with sea level rise, it's easy for mangroves to go back, like towards the land, not for the salt marsh. So the mangroves would easily go back. That's happening like currently in the last 10 years or 15 years, it has happened in the Mesoamerican reef region called Belize. If you know Belize, the country, it's happening in Seychelles, in Western Indian Ocean. It's happening there. The mangroves are coming back towards the land. So because with sea level rise, it's easier for them to go to less saline areas, So, but the thing is, the universities in Odisha or the research organizations in Odisha, they don't work much often on this mangrove geochemistry or the coastal geochemistry part. And whenever like the ECRIC project here doesn't have any scientists which are specialized in mangrove seagrass or salt marsh. They just have managers who are managing the system. So I don't know, it's a sorry state for all of us, but that's how it works, like, I don't know. I can only do my part and help and hope that helps others, like I am engaged with few of these youth who are planting mangroves. Like I think Somya from Astaranga, I am working with him to kind of develop a protocol which can be replicated at other places. But yeah, that's that's how it works. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mishra. In future, we want to work with you.
Sure, no problem. Sir. No problem.
It is my suggestion. Why don't you organize some workshop on conservation of salt marsh ecosystem or seagrass ecosystem? Because many you will be encouraged to participate and they will be sensitized to cooperate with the forest department.
Yeah, we are doing that with the ACRIC project is with the Ministry of Forest Department of Government of Odisha. So the Forest Department and the regional DFOs will be there next week to listen about the salt marsh and seagrass and to identify them and everything. Yeah.
Yes, sir, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Amrit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a great
Thank you.
time. Thank you very much. Take care.